Welcome along to the Punter on Sports Tonight, the show that brings you all the value on the markets across the current sporting calendar. You're with Dan Roebuck over the next hour. In the studio with me, Chris Graham. We'll be talking football, golf, boxing, horse racing and indeed Radio 1 a little bit later on. Chris, a very good evening to you. How's your punting week been so far?
Not too bad. I've been kept it quiet the last couple of days. I've got a few in the next day or two that I'm looking forward to getting involved with.
It's a big sporting weekend, isn't it? So you've been keeping your powder dry.
I have been. I've just about got over Andy Murray's defeat, so I've managed to get out of bed the last couple of days after that. And but no, a couple of beauties coming up, which we'll talk about in the next 45 minutes.
What we want to talk about now is Andy Carroll, because this is the footballer who's been making the headlines today, because there's lots of speculation that he's going to move away from Liverpool. They paid how much for him again?
I actually gasped when I read this morning. £35 million. It's unbelievable, but true.
And now they're shipping him out, potentially.
Yeah, well, I mean, new manager, new ideas, new approach, and Rodgers. He's not a kind of Brendan Rodgers type player, is he? Let's be honest. Far too ungainly for that. So yeah, really concerning for Andy Carroll. And if he does leave, he'll go down probably as the worst transfer in the history of football.
He hasn't left yet, and the odds suggest he's going to stay. Yes, there's been lots of speculation, but as we look at the prices here, yes, 1 to 4, no, 11 to 4, I should say, he will stay at Liverpool. 1 to 4, I mean, obviously, these stories get put into the press, and suddenly more than one team are interested. The team that was mentioned today, West Ham, and I guess when you think of Sam Allardyce, you think of big number 9, which I guess Andy Carroll fits that description.
Yeah, it's a natural match, really, isn't it? But I think we'll see loads of rumours and teams getting mentioned over the next few weeks and stuff like that. I only want to take in the 1 to 4 that he stays at Liverpool after hearing Brendan Rodgers' press conference yesterday. You can also get him 6 to 5 to be registered with Liverpool on September the 1st with another firm, which is, you think about that, that's quite an extraordinary price. So odds against that he's registered at Liverpool in September the 1st.
Crazy, isn't it? Let's bring in Russ Wiseman of Sporting Bet. Russ, an intriguing story regarding Andy Carroll. Where do you think his future lies?
Well, I think you guys have summed it up very nicely, actually, Dan. I mean, when we see these stories hit the press, and there tends to be a little bit of a furor in the bookmaking market, and eventually those markets settle down. And you know, you quoted those prices there: 4's on that he stays at Liverpool, 11 to 4 that he leaves Liverpool by the end of this transfer window. And I think that right now accurately reflects what the sentiment is. There's been a lot of momentum over the last 24 hours about his future, but the reality is, a player with that kind of contract, that kind of burden on him, it's going to be difficult to shift him. Yes, West Ham would love to take him on a season-long loan deal, but as Chris mentioned there, £35 million deal. You know, he's got a lot of money to repay back, and I do think he showed some major signs and sowed some major seeds, actually, of potentially getting out of this mess. Andy Carroll, he's still a player who's got a lot of potential to fulfil, and I think a lot of people still believe in the guy. Certainly on Merseyside, and I've been up there doing some radio this week, Dan. Most of the fans still with this guy. They still think he has a future, even if he isn't a Brendan Rodgers style kind of player.
Let's take a look at the odds of which club potentially he could go to if he does indeed leave Liverpool, because West Ham, of course, has been touted around 7 to 2, AC Milan 4 to 1. I can't quite see that one personally. Arsenal 18s, back to Newcastle at 18 to 1, Reading at 20 to 1, Spurs 20s. Any club catch your eye, Chris?
At the prices, Newcastle at 18 to 1. I think you often find players who move up a level in terms of club, a big money move to a big club, it goes wrong. They tend to go back to where they come from, which was Newcastle. Andy Carroll, he's a Newcastle lad. I think 18 to 1. If I was having a price a pop at this market, that's where I'd be going. Huh?
Are you surprised that he's failed at Liverpool? Because he has just 4 Premier League goals last season.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent of his failure, I'm surprised by. I mean, it's been really poor. I feel, you know, I'm having a pop up here, but I feel sorry for the guy. I mean, he didn't ask to leave Newcastle. He was thrown into the lion's den. He hasn't come up trumps, and I feel sorry for him. But you know, hopefully he can turn around. Whether that's at Liverpool, I have my doubts. Maybe elsewhere.
Russ, you've got him as 28 to 1. to be the top Premier League goal scorer next season. Doesn't matter where he'll be. Obviously, he could be at West Ham, he could still be at Liverpool, he could be at Newcastle. I mean, they're sizable odds, but they're not absolutely massive. And as we saw in his Newcastle days, in that first half season back in the Premier League at Newcastle, he was scoring goals for fun. So he's got ability to score at the top level, hasn't he?
Yeah, Dan, totally agree with you again. I mean, I think 28 to 1 is an accurate price that reflects his exact chances. I mean, I don't think there's anything particularly groundbreaking about those odds, but certainly he's not a 4 to 1 favourite to win this thing, but he's certainly no 100 to 1 no hoper either. So this is a guy who, when he hits form, he can terrorise defences, and he really has got massive goal scoring potential. If you took the very best of his form at Newcastle, and I do agree with Chris that probably at the prices that's the most likely destination from a value point of view. This guy really could cause some trouble next year, and he showed some signs in the Euros as well that he can be a handful. There were many defences he didn't even want to challenge this guy in the air. Very dominant player on his day, and I think 28 to 1. I've seen worse bargains. Put it that way, Dan. Just going back to the West Ham side of it, obviously he's big mates with Kevin Nolan. That's probably part of the influence there. But like I say, if we took the overall balance of it now and took a lot of the press on Merseyside, we're incredibly close to what goes on at Liverpool Football Club. It would indicate that he's probably going to stay, and that way, you're looking at Suarez, who's a 14 to 1 shot, Carroll 20 to 1. Clearly, Luis Suarez is the main guy there at the moment, but Andy Carroll certainly not a no-hoper.
Yeah, 28 to 1. It'd be interesting to see if there's any takers of odds such as that. Speaking of 28 to 1. Liverpool at 28 to 1 to win the title. Let's take a look with the Sporting Bet. You can get 40s elsewhere. Manchester City 13 to 10 to win the title. Manchester United 11 to 4. We'll keep it on Liverpool, Chris. I mean, the best price 40s. Have they got any sort of chance? I mean, I believe that if they buy into what Brendan Rodgers wants to do, they will be more successful than last season. Whether they will win the title, I'm not too sure.
I would not get involved at 40 to 1. No chance. I mean, it's better than some of the 9 and 16 to 1 that was bandied about this time last year. Brett Rodgers is a very, very interesting appointment, let's be honest, and I just hope he gets time. I think it really could be like a Ferguson type appointment where it revolutionised Manchester United. It really could be like that, but he needs time. The fans have to understand that, the club have to understand that, and it could be that we'll see Liverpool at single-figure prices to win the title in 2 or 3 years' time if he gets that time.
Russ, you've got your ear close to the ground in Merseyside. Do the fans welcome the appointment of Brendan Rodgers? Did they want him in the first place? Did they want a Roberto Martinez? Did they want someone from the continent? How is he being received?
I think now they've digested everything, Dan. I think it's a very popular appointment. I mean, the guy that most Liverpool fans wanted was Jose Mourinho, and that gives you an idea of the expectation on Merseyside. Let's be very clear, that's what the fans wanted. They believe they deserve a guy like that. So, when we look at the odds to see what Liverpool are to win the league, 28 to 1 Sporting Bet, 40 to 1 elsewhere, I can assure you that with nearly every single firm, come day one of the season, if you ask them what their field book anti-post prices, what their overall anti-post book look like, Liverpool will be the worst result. They're always so well backed, incredibly popular team, and I just feel as though Brendan Rodgers will be given time. When the fans see this guy's team knocking the ball around, playing good football, they'll give him time. They understand the Fenway boys aren't a short-term type of people. They'll want a long-term project here, and he'll man it well.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because there's a whole manner of different opinion when it comes to Liverpool. Coral are just 16 to 1.
That's extraordinary.
It's one of those things, isn't it? You get 40s, you get 16s, you get 28s. I think, odds compilers are a little bit undecided. They're not quite sure what's going to happen at Anfield.
Yeah, there's no way you can turn it around in a year, surely not. I mean, Liverpool haven't won the title for 22 years. I mean, remember when I was a kid growing up, it was the Manchester United gap between titles. It was that was 26 years. Liverpool's getting close to that now. For me, this is a 3-4 year project before they can be winning titles again.
What about top four? Because Liverpool haven't been in the top four last couple of campaigns. They are 5 to 2, as you can see from the odds, to break into that top four. But as we know, the top four is a lot harder to break into these days, with Manchester City almost guaranteed it, as you can see. They're 1 to 33, and Spurs, who have been unlucky in the last couple of campaigns. Yeah,
and Liverpool were always long odds on in this particular market for years, and very popular in this market. But I think 5 to 2 is about the right price now, really, in terms of them finishing in the top four. Not for me. I can see them finishing in sixth position this year. I just think the Villas-Boas appointment at Tottenham was really interesting, and Arsenal always seem to get the job. They always stay the trip, Arsenal, in some form or other. So Liverpool for me, 6th place.
6th place for Liverpool for Chris. Russ, you've got a whole manner of specials when it comes to where Liverpool might finish. I mean, relegation, they're triple figure odds, but I guess to finish in the bottom half, one or two who don't particularly like Liverpool might be looking at that. What specials have you got?
Yeah, when you look at bottom half, they're down 12-1. I suppose you could make some sort of case. I still think Liverpool are a powerhouse outfit, though. I mean, I wouldn't be writing them off completely. And we know the kind of history and tradition they have, a 14-1 to win this Europa League. Certainly not beyond the realms of possibility. But I think it's important we put Liverpool in perspective here about betting and where they fit in the betting market, Dan. I mean, they are so popular. They're always a bad result, Liverpool. Backed every week. Everybody supports them. And I'll put some perspective on this as well. Obviously, Sporting Bet have got a box at Wolverhampton Wanderers. They're no longer in the Premier League, but we have ticket requests for each team. Now, obviously, when you're playing against Wigan, you might have 6 or 7. When it was Manchester United, it was around about 100, and that was the second biggest. Liverpool, we had over 250 requests for tickets for that game. They are such a popular team, so heavily supported, and that's why the betting markets always see contracted odds. When you look at overall support, Liverpool's still an enormous club, and that's why you see these odds so short with Liverpool.
You're going to take money in any price, it would appear, Chris, when it comes to Liverpool, and that's probably right, isn't it? Same with Manchester United, same with Arsenal.
Yeah, I just echo what Ross says. It's a great institution. If I've come across critical in any way, it's just my opinion. But I'd love to see Liverpool back at the top of the English game. Great institution, great club, and maybe Rodgers is the man to do it.
Yeah, let's not forget they won a trophy last year. They won the Carling Cup. It's now called the Capital One Cup. That's the reincarnation of the Carling Cup, the League Cup, 9-1, FA Cup 10-1, Europa League at 14, no trophies whatsoever, 1-4. Any of the knockout competitions, Kesha, I mean, if Brendan Rodgers gets his, if he takes a little bit of time and come the new year, maybe an FA Cup success?
Yeah, it wasn't enough for Kenny Dalglish last year winning a trophy, but I think they did a lot for the club, that Carling Cup victory, and I think Rodgers will be, he'll desperately want to get some trophy, silverware in the cabinet, and I think the Capital One Cup, which sounds like a radio station, doesn't it? Which we'll talk about Radio 1 later, which is quite interesting, is the most likely pick at 9-1, I would say, to defend the title.
And Ross, 14s when it comes to the Europa League, you are joint best price about Liverpool winning that, and we always associate Liverpool with a European run, and the fans demand it. There's usually decent crowds, doesn't matter what competition. Do you think that Brendan Rodgers will buy into it, or do you think we might see a second string side almost when Liverpool play in that particular competition?
Yeah, I actually agree with that, Dan. I think that's the way we've read it at Sporting Bet. I think we will see a slightly depleted outfit for Liverpool. The priority here for Rodgers clearly is a long-term plan, and the Fenway boys, John Henry, Tom Werner and the likes, will want to see progress in the league. That clearly will be the focus. As you mentioned, the credit card cup, or whatever they want to call it these days, I think that's what the boys on the back are calling it. That might be an interesting one for them, maybe to mount some sort of challenge. But I don't see this really being a priority for Liverpool. I mean, a positively finish with good football is what they're looking for, and I think the fans will give him the time. There's no Kenny Dalglish hovering over him the way there was with Roy Hodgson before, and they essentially hounded him out of it. But I do think Liverpool will see progress this year. Top 4 not out of the realms of possibility. It's 9-4, 5-2, but I don't think it'll be trophy season for them. But we'll see them make progress.
Russ Wiseman of Sporting Bet, many thanks for joining us.
Cheers, Dan. Cheers, Chris.
Thanks, Ross.
That was Ross talking about Liverpool, and indeed prior to that, Andy Carroll. Lots more to come on the show. After the break, we're going to be talking boxing, 2 big fights this weekend. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching the Punter on Sports Tonight. Chris, time to talk boxing. Haye Chisora divides opinion. Are you excited about the fight at Upton Park?
Not at all. It's a fight between 2 horrible human beings, and I'm not getting involved in it at all. I hope it's a flop in every sense of the way.
Can you understand, though, why the British public in particular are interested in this? Because there's been so much trash talk between the pair.
Perhaps a certain section of society, yeah, but it ticks all the boxes, I guess, in terms of revenge and sort of lowbrow entertainment. It does tick all the boxes for that. But for me personally, as a boxing spectacle, it's two men who have lost a lot of credibility in the last 12 months.
From a punting point of view, though, get away from the fact that it's under the Luxembourg board of control, but from a punting point of view, do you think there's any value in any other markets?
I really do. I think David Haye's, I'm really surprised at David Haye's price. He's much bigger than I ever anticipated. I was always under the impression that he was just a far better fighter than Derek Chisora. Let's wind it back a year, Dan. A year ago, he was the darling of this country. Just before his defeat to Klitschko, he was short price for Sports Personality of the Year. He was on primetime Saturday night television, BBC and ITV. Everyone loved him then. And if we had this fight last year, he's certainly going to be 4-11.
It's interesting that the prices have changed over the past 24 hours or so, because David Haye has indeed come in 4-11 now, as you mentioned. Chisora 11-4, draw 33-1. In terms of class, as you say, you wind it back, Haye would certainly beat Chisora. But in terms of their last two fights, Chisora, you'd say, probably showed a little bit more aggression, certainly looked to take the fight to the Klitschko brother that he fought, whereas Haye showed no aggression whatsoever.
That's true. I don't think David Haye did himself any favours in that last fight, and of course we haven't saw him since. But for me, he's just a better fighter. He's beat Llanelli, he beat Valiev, of course, on Reyes. 23 knockouts in 25, I think 27 fights, and he's just got a much better record than Chisora. And for me, he's just a class above him.
Let's get some expert analysis on the fight at Upton Park. Kris Dawson joins us via Skype. Chris, short price favourite David Haye, 4-11. He's been backed over the course of the last day. Is he still the value play, or should we look to Chisora or maybe one of the other markets? How are you seeing the fight?
Well, I'm really hoping for the double knockout, to be honest with you. Do the boxing world a favour, but I think in terms of the betting, I think that Haye on points is my call here. I think it'd be very interesting to see the way that the fight is going to be fought. But I think what will happen is that David Haye will sort of, he will be on his, he will get on his bike, I think, on this. And I think, that Chisora's going to come looking for him, I think, from the get-go. And I think David Haye will just look to box and try and pick him off on the move. So I'm slightly concerned about Haye's long layoff out of the ring. It does worry me a little bit, but I think Haye on points would be the call for me.
You mentioned Haye on points. Let's take a look at some of the prices that we've got when it comes to those betting markets outside of just the fight prices. We've got Haye by knockout or technical knockout, or indeed disqualification 6-4. Haye by decision 2-1. Chisora 7-1 and 7-1 for those two markets. Again, I mean, can you see a knockout, Chris? Because these two fighters have been trash talking over the course of the last few weeks. They both say they're going to knock each other out. I mean, can we see it end quickly, or saying no? Why not?
Well, it's an interesting one, because Chisora will come looking for him. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And I think that, out of the two, the one more likely to lose it in the ring is definitely Del Boy, if you like. The interesting factor is that Haye hasn't got much of a chin. And if Chisora can land one on the button, he could make life very interesting here. I'd be very surprised if Haye was able to knock Chisora out. It seems to me that Chisora has got a very good chin, and he showed that against Tyson Fury, even when he was, in sort of very bad shape. He came into that ring. I remember his trainer Don Charles was saying, post-fight, that he very nearly pulled Derek Chisora out. And really, Tyson Fury landed some, huge punches on him, and he was able to carry on going. So I think if one person is going to get knocked out, I think David Haye is the more likely of the two.
In terms of the fight itself, are we suggesting that Haye is more likely to do to Chisora what he did to Valiev? Do you think it could be a similar type of fight?
Yeah, I think it could. I think that's how the fight's going to be fought. I really don't think, I think Haye is professional enough that he's not going to lose it in there. I think he'll box a very smart fight, despite all the bad blood. I think he'll put that to one side when it actually comes to fight night, and I think he'll box on the move. And I think if he does that, he probably will win.
Let's bring Chris Graham back in. Is this real hatred, do you think? Because we keep getting these stories about security guards making sure that they're separated in the ring and the walk-up and so on and so forth. Is it real hatred, or are we going to get one of these fights that afterwards they're going to embrace and, you know, the hatred's going to disappear and really it was all there just to sell the fight?
I'd go 50-1 that they embrace, but I'm always cynical, whatever David Haye says. I'm just a born cynic with that guy. I think the guy is just is a joke, to be honest. So whatever he says about Derek Chisora, I'd be very wary about. But yeah, I'm sure they won't go out for a pint with each other. But whether the hatred is as much as it comes across in the press, I'm not too sure.
Kris Dawson, what's the future for these fighters, whatever happens?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I think that I can't really see David Haye doing much after this, win or lose. You know, he's always taught. I think now he's in boxing for the money. You know, the rumour is, you know, that the money that he's getting is anywhere between sort of 1.5 and £3 million for this fight. Of course, the one he's always talked about is Vitaly Klitschko, but Vitaly Klitschko said that, you know, his next fight is going to be his last one. There's going to be no rematch against Vladimir Klitschko, and I think for Haye, there's nowhere really to go for him, win or lose after this fight. I imagine that he will sort of retire. As for Derek Chisora, for him it's a lot more interesting. I think this is more crucial for him. I think that, you know, if he does lose against David Haye, then it's going to be very, very difficult for him to get other big fights, and he's going to have a mountain to climb, I think, to get back to any sort of a meaningful prospect in the ring. So it's more on the line, I think, for Chisora than it is for Haye.
Let's move it on, Kris Dawson, to Amir Khan, because there's plenty on the line here for the former Olympic champ. He's a 1-5 shot to beat Danny Garcia, who is unbeaten. How do you see the odds for the fight in the early hours in Las Vegas on Sunday morning?
Well, in all honesty, I'm actually really, really surprised that they've made Amir Khan such a warm favourite here. I think there's still this kind of like romantic view about Amir Khan, about, you know, he's still very much a superstar, and you know, they seem to have forgotten largely what happened with Lamont Peterson last fight. I'm more than happy to take Amir Khan on 1-5. I don't think he's a 1-5 chance at all. I think his odds are considerably lower than this, and I think there's real value in backing Garcia here.
So Garcia by way of knockout, how are we tackling it?
Well, yeah, I think well, I mean, Garcia on the outrights, I think is very good value indeed. I think, like I say, I think that there's still this feeling that Amir Khan's still a superstar. I mean, you know, he's been managed very well. He obviously had a great Olympic career, and they did a very good job of hyping him up. But really, he just hasn't lived up to the hype so far. And I've been watching this Danny Garcia today, and he's everything that Khan doesn't like. He can come there, he can bang, he's going to stand in front of Khan. And really, the way to box Amir Khan is to really sort of get up close. The minute that people get inside of him, he can't fight on the inside, Amir Khan. And unfortunately, he's not a concussive enough puncher that when he boxes on the outside that he can keep fellas off him. We saw this against Maidana. We also saw it against Lamont Peterson, where, you know, both of them decided, well, you know, I've really got to press up on him, and they do that. And unfortunately, Khan sort of gets into a war. So I would say Garcia on the outright specifically, and perhaps, you know, if you wanted something a bit more speculative, perhaps Garcia on the knockout. But I think he's certainly the value play.
Let's take a look at the odds for the fight at Mandalay Bay. As you can see, if you do fancy Garcia by knockout, or indeed technical knockout or disqualification, 9-1. Garcia by decision, 11-1. Khan is the favourite. Chris Graham in the studio. Have you got a view on this one? I mean, as Kris Dawson was saying there, Amir Khan very, very short, and for me, he's underachieved a little over the last few fights, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I would bow to Chris's knowledge here. I wouldn't dare to take him on in terms of what he thinks, but I did have Khan down here as to win. Garcia's coming into the fight late. Of course, it's been rescheduled since the Lamont Peterson's disqualification. So I thought, with that in mind, I thought Khan would be able to take him and win the fight at 1-5. Yeah.
Kris Dawson, what next for Amir Khan? Because much has been discussed recently about the fact that this is probably going to be his last fight at light welterweight. Is he going to go to welterweight? Will he be successful against the likes of a Mayweather or a Cotto or a Pacquiao?
Yeah, it's a big one, isn't it? It's an interesting one for me. It depends on a lot of things. Specifically, how I think he handles going up against guys who punch a lot harder. Ricky Hatton had a lot of problems. I remember making the jump up from light welter to welter. I think Khan's got a few things that he has got an advantage with. I think he's younger and he will tend to fill out even as his career goes on, even now. I think it's a little bit premature to start, putting him in with a Mayweather. Although I think Mayweather is starting to just slip a bit. That's my own personal opinion of him. He's not moving as much as he was. He's getting tagged a bit more often than he was. But in terms of Khan going up, it will be very interesting to see. Does he carry the power up? And also, can he take a shot up there? And his chin's always been the worrying factor. So I don't know. I will wait with bated breath, I think.
Kris Dawson, many thanks for joining us on The Punter. Great insight into the two fights coming up this weekend. Much more to come on the show. Next, we'll be talking golf. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're watching The Punter on Sports Tonight. Time to talk golf. The Scottish Open is underway at Castle Stuart Links on Thursday. Chris Graham in the studio. This must be an event close to your heart.
I actually went there in 1994 with my dad many years ago. Carol Mason won that year. That's how long ago it was. It was a wonderful day. Glen Eagles it was.
It's a tournament that over the last few years I feel has probably been upped in prestige because we're getting lots of high profile names playing in it, and because of its position just ahead of the Open, I think a lot of the Americans coming over, a lot of the top Europeans taking it very seriously. Yeah,
Phil Mickelson's playing again this year. Luke Donald won it last year, of course. He's playing again this year. So yeah, it's just, I think a lot of them, a split opinion whether some of them would rather avoid the week before, or some say it's the ideal preparation for the following week. Yeah.
Let's take a look at how the market shapes up. The market principles like this, with Luke Donald the shortish price favourite at 8 to 1, Porrick Harrington at 16s, Francesco Molinari at 20 to 1 with Nicholas Colsaerts. I mean, these are big names, European Tour winners, major winners, of course, when it comes to the likes of Harrington. Phil Mickelson just off our first page of odds there. This is a classy field.
It's a very classy field, and Luke Donald, of course, the defending champion, at 8 to 1, bit too short for me at a field of about 165 players. Patrick Harrington's got a really good chance. He loves the links, we saw that, he's won a couple of Opens. I think he's a fair price at 61. Molinari as well catches my eye at 20 to 1, but I like Henrik Stenson here, probably as my main pick here, 33 to 1. Former world number 4, he's went off the radar in terms of the rankings that we discussed 5 minutes ago. 13th, 6th and 7th in his last 3 tournaments, so he's getting back to form. He finished third in 2 Opens in the last few years, so he obviously likes golf as well. So Stenson for me, a good shout at 33s.
Stenson for Chris. Let's take some expert analysis from Jeremy Elwood of Golf Monthly magazine. Jeremy, this is a good event, isn't it? Luke Donald, the world number 1, is playing at Castle Stuart Links, and Phil Mickelson has travelled over from America as well. It seems as if the players are taking this event more seriously than maybe they did a few years ago.
Well, I think that's possibly true. I think it's always been a reasonably high standard of event since we went to Loch Lomond, but I think the added lure at the moment is the fact that it's links golf the week before the Open, and it's a modern links, but it is by the sea. They're likely to get some of the conditions they're going to experience at Lytham, and a lot of the players will be feeling that's good preparation for the big one next week.
Has it been a surprise you mentioned Loch Lomond, because Loch Lomond obviously a very different type of course to Castle Stuart Links. It still attracted plenty of the Americans. Were you surprised that it was played at Loch Lomond for such a long time and it's only now just reverted to a links layout?
Well, I think that's all to do with sponsorships, and it may have been that the sponsors wanted it closer to, Glasgow and Edinburgh and the major Scottish centres of conurbation. But it's good to see it back on the links course. I can remember when it was at Carnoustie, going back a few years, and then it went to Glen Eagles, I think, as your other guy in the studio there said. But it's good to have it on a links course the week before the Open, because there is something that is going to attract more players than perhaps might do otherwise.
And Chris, with me in the studio, does it attract more to the galleries, do you think, because it's a links course? Do you think that the Scottish public like to see players battle the elements that we always seem to see, and these links venues that maybe gives one or two of the Americans a hard time?
Yeah, I think it's good entertainment value, and it's good prep for next week's Open, of course, and it's a good kind of international export, isn't it? You know, it's a very typical Scottish course, and the American public love that side of it.
Jeremy, last year's renewal, of course, was only 3 rounds. That was because of the weather. They had all sorts of problems on the course as well, but Luke Donald still managed to shoot a 63 to win. He's the favourite this week, as we've just been discussing. As far as you're concerned, is it his for the taking, or do you think there's one or two other players that could come good this week?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, he's actually had a very solid year again, but obviously everything's judged by very, very high standards now when it comes to Luke Donald. And you know, if he's not right up there every single week, people ask questions. He missed the cut in the US Open, but you know, before that he'd won the BMW. But I think, like Chris said, I think Harrington could be one to watch this week. He's actually 8th and 4th in both the majors so far this year, so there's a chance he may be eyeing up next week a little bit more than this week, but he's actually looking like he's back to the old Padraig Harrington and rapidly climbing the world rankings again.
You mentioned back to the... sorry, Jeremy, you mentioned back to the old Padraig Harrington because he took the extraordinary decision to completely change his swing, didn't he, after winning 3 majors? Why on earth would you do that?
Well, that's a question I actually asked him after that, and he just says that the moment you stop striving to improve, you're going backwards. Now, that may well be true, but that's quite difficult to really put in context from a guy who'd actually just won 3 out of 6 majors in a row. I mean, I'm not quite sure how much you can improve on that, but I think it's part of his character, that slightly obsessive nature that he has.
Harrington certainly got a bit of a chance. I can't believe he changed his swing after 3 majors, can you?
Just won a major. I'll change my swing.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I'll change my swing when I get a par 3 at Palewell Golf Club. There's no doubt about that. Jeremy, we've got the John Deere Classic in America as well. We'll just touch on this briefly. We've got the odds up on screen. Steve Stricker, who's going for a 4th consecutive win in this event. Now, that doesn't happen too often, and I guess that's why he's staying in America and not preparing for the Open champion. I mean, that would be some feat if he could win again.
It would be. I mean, I think they're thinking of renaming it the Steve Stricker Benefit Tournament. I mean, he's won more in that tournament in the last 3 years than most of us will see in a lifetime. But that's the way he's chosen to warm up for the Open. It's obviously a tournament he's very comfortable in. It favours low scoring. It's, I believe, it's one of the easier courses on tour in terms of the ranking. So, if you're not shooting 20 under or better, you're not going to win that. And obviously, Stricker is a phenomenally good putter. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see him right up there again this week. Whether he can make it 4 in a row, who knows?
Zach Johnson as well. Chris is playing another winner on tour this year. And again, a player that, from my point of view, I would expect him maybe to either be practicing links golf, either maybe in Ireland or coming across early. For me, I expect the Americans to come across and prepare a bit better for the Open. Is that a surprise for you?
Yeah, well, so some of them don't seem to get into the spirit of the Open, do they? I mean, and Zach Johnson, you're sort of atypical, archetypal American there. For Kenny Perry as well is another guy who never really didn't even take part in the Open. I don't think he used to dodge it. I'll just put a name in here for this one. Sean O'Hare won this competition in 2005, tied for 7th last week in the Greenbrier. So back in form, and he's available at a gorgeous price
Of 40, 50, 66. Yeah, Sean O'Hare back to form potentially.
Mm.
Jeremy, do you think it's going to be Steve Stricker again? Is there anyone else that you can potentially throw in the mix? The likes of Song Yul No has been playing well on the PGA Tour. We saw on our first page of odds there. Anyone that you can put up for us?
Well, funnily enough, it's going to sound like I'm making this up. I actually had Sean O'Hare written down on my notepad as well. Honest to God, obviously you can't see that, but beyond that, you know, it's hard, isn't it? You know, last week we had Troy Kelly and Ted Potter Jr. and most of us have probably not that familiar with their work. No. But I quite like the idea of Brian Davis, who's the Englishman who's been out there for a number of years. He's having a solid year, 3 4th places so far this year. It could be, you know, a slightly weaker field out there. It could be his chance maybe to shine finally. Just
back on Sean O'Hare, and correct me if I'm wrong with this, because I might be. But didn't he dispense with the services of Sean Foley, who subsequently has led Tiger Woods to 3 wins this year and led Justin Rose to victory and indeed Hunter Mahan? How does Sean O'Hare feel now?
Well, he's doing all right this year, isn't he? After, you know,
it's a strange... It's a strange one, isn't it, Chris? Because you get rid of the coach and suddenly the coach goes and turns Tiger's game around.
Yeah, that happened with Tiger though, didn't it? He got rid of the caddy Steve Williams, and then he won a big tournament the next month with Adam Scott. That was it.
Adam Scott's certainly doing well at the moment. Let's move back to the Open Championship, or move forward to the Open Championship. Tiger Woods, of course, is the favourite, Jeremy. He has to be, I guess, because he's the only three-time winner on the PGA Tour this year. He did play at Royal Lytham back when it was last stage there, when David Duval won. What sort of chance do you think Woods has got of getting back in the winner's enclosure in the major?
I think it will all depend on how he drives the ball, because there's there's 204 bunkers at Lytham, and if you're in those too many times, you won't be lifting the claret jug. And the course is very soft, I would imagine, at the moment, after all the rain we've had, even down here. So he will be having to hit driver perhaps a little bit more than, when he won at Haye Lake and was able to steer it round with his 2-iron or 3-iron or whatever it was. And his driver has traditionally been the weaker club in his bag. So I think it will depend how much he has that club under control. That will dictate his chances at Lytham in a week's time.
Woods is the favourite. Let's take a look at the prices as they stand at the moment. Woods at 8-1, Lee Westwood 16-1, Rory McIlroy at 16-1. A year ago, it would be unheard of to see McIlroy at 16-1 to win this particular major. Chris.
Amazing, yeah. Tiger Woods, just to go back at him, every time I come in and look at this, his price gets bigger every day. I still need to come in for another week before his price appeals to me though. 8-1, far too short for me. I mean, everyone's thinking he's coming back to form. He didn't make the cut last week. And when he was back at his pomp in 2001, when it was last at Lytham, he was tied for 27th. So not a player I'd trust at single figure prices at the Open. No chance.
Would you get involved now? Would you wait to see what happens with the Scottish Open and indeed the John Deere for that matter?
I'd take a wee look at them. I've got hours and hours and hours of research to do before I could commit to a selection this time next week. But as I've been trying to sum up in the last few days, outsiders tend to win this event. That is never the case, but so many, let's just say, not great players have won it in the past. Todd Hamilton, Ben Curtis, Louis Oosthuizen, and it's an event you have to seriously tread carefully in.
David Duval, you mentioned one there in 2001. Seve's won a couple of times as well, of course. Jeremy, one last word from you.
Yeah.
I just touched on Rory McIlroy with Chris here in the studio. What do you think's gone wrong with Rory's game over the last few months? Because he's obviously not hitting it as well as he was this time last year.
It's hard to know, isn't it? Even with the very best players, form comes and goes, and when you've scaled such heights, people, are asking questions as soon as you're not in the top 2 or 3 every week. People are talking about off-course distraction, shall we say, whether they're helping or hindering, or who knows what. He's still a very young man, and he isn't going to be able to play at the very peak of his game, week in, week out. I'm sure it won't be too long before he's back to his best.
Who would you put up for the Open Championship if you had to have a bet now?
Well, funnily enough, I would actually go for his very good friend Graham McDowell, our Golf Monthly columnist, who, he's brought up on a links. He's never actually, done absolutely brilliantly at the Open, but he's the kind of player you think, with all that practice on links courses as he grew up, he should really one day just deliver on an Open course. And he played pretty well in Ireland in the last round to get himself, up through the field there. And I suspect he's regarded that Portrush Irish Open as his links warm-up, which is why he's not playing this week. Maybe just resting the week before the Open, having got back into that links groove a little bit at his home club. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him go quite close.
Jeremy, many thanks for joining us on The Punter. There's still more to come on the show. We're going to be talking football and indeed Radio 1 shortly. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're with Dan Roebuck and Chris Graham on The Punter. Time to talk football. Europa League qualifier. Llanelli take on Cups. Chris, difficult game really. These Europa League qualifiers always are. As you can see by the odds, it's an interesting game and one where we've got Cups as the even money favourites to get the better of Llanelli in Wales.
This is the one I've been looking forward to all week, like Llanelli against Cups. But no, I'm surprised at the odds really. I did do some very, very primitive research on this. Llanelli lost the first leg 2-1 or 2-0 down. They scored late to claw it back to 2-1. The reason that Coups or CUPS are favourites are because they're playing at the moment. Well, of course, the Welsh League's on its break, but they're actually second bottom in the Finnish league at the moment, so not exactly, you know, ripping up trees, shall we say. This is in Wales. I actually like Llanelli here at 5-2. I was surprised at that price. The big, you know, 500 crowd behind them. I think it can really set them on fire and win the game.
Some punters look at these games and think that they are absolute gold mines because they are matches that most odds compilers, let alone punters or indeed football fans, know too much about. If you're prepared to do your research, you can get some sort of angle. You made one point about the fact that the Finnish league is obviously a summer league. I think they play 16, 17 games, something like that. Of course, Llanelli haven't started their league yet, and this happens all the time in Europa League qualifiers. And you've got to say it's got to be an advantage to those sides that play in Scandinavia, the Swedish Summer League, and so on and so forth. And you can see that the qualifying prices see Cups at 1-5. Yes, they won that first leg. It's not completely done and dusted, but you do feel for Llanelli a little bit here, 3-1.
Yeah, I do. I mean, they only lost 2-1 in Finland, you know, at home with CUPS. I'm surprised that they're as big as 3-1 to qualify. I just think, you know, back home and you know, with the Welsh crowd behind them, I think they're worth a wee investment at 5-2 to win the game and 3-1 to qualify as well.
Portadown managed to make it through to the next qualifying round. I mean, it's tremendously tough, isn't it, for the Welsh sides, the sides from Northern Ireland as well, and they have to get through 3 qualifying rounds just to make it to a playoff round and then potentially into the group stages of the Europa League. But if they can maybe get through to that second qualifying round, they might be able to draw a side that potentially could be some sort of money spinner.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Shelbourne last year, got to the group stages, didn't they? They got through against Tottenham, which was, or was it Shamrock Rovers? Apologies. It was a great achievement. Shamrock Rovers. Apologies, my Irish football. I need to improve on that. Shamrock Rovers, of course, got to the group stages last year, so it can happen. It can be done, and this is. I can see this being Scottish football's future in the next 5 to 10 years. I can say that.
Yeah, you can.
You can, and it breaks my heart saying that.
Speaking of Wales, let's talk horse racing. And we've got the Princess of Wales Stakes coming up, of course, at Newmarket. It's the first day of the July meeting tomorrow. Where does this sit in your racing calendar? Is it one that you look forward to?
It's a lovely event, usually bathed in sunshine with glorious women and stuff like that. The latter might happen, but boy oh boy, the former ain't going to happen, that's for sure. No, this is the big race tomorrow, the Princess of Wales Stakes. It's a Group 2, so it's a decent race. I like the favourite here, 11-4, strongly. I think it's a really decent price. Red Cadeau, got really superb form. Here we go. It's still been at the top 3 in its last 7 races. Who's it come up against, Chris? Well, second in the Melbourne Cup, second to Colour Vision in the Sagaro Stakes. Colour Vision went on to win the Ascot Gold Cup. It then won the Yorkshire Cup, Red Cadeau. Then he was second in the Coronation Cup, a classy race. Third to Sea Moon in the Hardwick at Royal Ascot. And up against quality horses, as you can see there, and it's won over soft before. So my point here is he's been running against much better horses than the rest of the field, and it likes soft as well. So he'll be suited by that, and I think he's a class apart from almost all of these other horses in the race. And I think 11-4, it's a very good bet.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you mentioned Harris Tweed there, 3-1 second favourite. Well, Red Cadeau, on all known form, will beat Harris Tweed again, certainly if that Yorkshire Cup form is frank once more. So you can't really see the second favourite getting better than the favourite. One that I throw in there, Fiorente, 14-1 shot. Michael Stout's got a good record, has taken this race 4 times in the last 7 years. Hasn't had the best of seasons, but I guess for a race of this sort of quality, maybe a bit of each way at 14.
That's a good shout. It's a horse that a lot of people had a lot of hope for this time last year, but he's just consistently disappointed Fiorente, which is a shame, and it is reflecting some Michael Stout's form at the moment. I saw some odds this morning in the Racing Post for top flat trainer this year, so Michael Stout wasn't even listed.
Interesting.
Which is, again, that made me gasp as well. Extraordinary fall from grace for the great man. Let's hope he can return to it.
Yeah, let's hope so, because he's a fantastic trainer. Let's move sports, if we can call it moving sports. We're going to talk about Radio 1 and Chris Moyles, because the news today is that Chris Moyles has stepped down from his position as breakfast DJ. Tell me all about this, because we've got Nick Grimshaw coming in.
Yeah, this is really interesting. How long have we got here?
We've got a few minutes.
Nice one.
It's the stage is set.
Nice one. Well, Nick Grimshaw's coming, the new breakfast show. And I priced it up this morning when I heard that Moyes had quit and the announcement was going to be made in the next couple of hours. I priced it up. I had Grimshaw at 16-1, so it was a massive shock that he's got this gig. This is a huge gamble from the BBC. It's a huge gamble. This guy's not your typical breakfast show host. He's a bit different. He's alternative. He hangs about Shoreditch and Hoxton, trendy parts of London. He wears the same kind of clothes as me when I'm out the studio. He's the kind of guy who wears beads. He's not your typical Radio 1 breakfast show host. So this is a big gamble from the BBC, and the odds to back up my thought.
I'm going to say, so therefore, how long is he going to last in this position? Because if you're saying that he's not a BBC type of bloke, well, less than a year, 5-1, between 1 to 2 years, 3-1, between 2 to 3 years, 6-4. Those odds are suggesting he's going to be in the seat for quite some time.
They are, but I can't have that. And I wish him the best because he's probably my favourite ever breakfast show host. But basically, there's been 12 breakfast show presenters. 5 haven't got past the 2-year mark. And I think this guy won't get past the 2-year mark. I think 3-1 is a good bet. Between 1 to 2 years at 3-1. He's not a mainstream kind of guy. I can't see that. I can't see the middle class housewives in Hemel Hempstead embracing Nick Grimshaw. He really is a bit different. This has got echoes of me of back in 1997 when they gave the gig to Mark Radcliffe and the boy Lard, which was really quite alternative. Chris Evans had just walked out. They gave him they lasted just 8 months. For me, it's that kind of thing. They're northern, they're quite alternative in their humour and stuff like that. And this is an amazing day for Nick Grimshaw, and I wish him the best. But
you don't think he's going to last too long. We've got a couple of specials. Will he last longer than Moyles? Moyles did 8.5 years, 16-1. And will he win Sony Gold in 2013? I don't think Moyles won it this year, did he, for the breakfast show? I think he went elsewhere.
Yeah, did he won it?
So do you think he might take that particular gong, 6-1? Do you think he might have a good first year? Or
I think the Sony Gold is a reasonable shout. I can see him being critically acclaimed, if not commercially populist acclaimed. So the 6-1's a decent shout. The 16-1, you might add a 0 to that, 160-1. I can see Grimshaw's the guy I would imagine to stay in a position for 7-8 years, that kind of position.
What about Chris Moyles? What happens to Chris next? He's done it for 8.5 years. Obviously, we've seen him on our television screens as well. He's done lots of different things. What's he going to do next, do you think? We've got odds on what he might do. Climb Everest for charity, 15-8. Win a Tony Award, 11-4. Break another world record. He's already got one, of course, on his CV, 3-1. Through in the Channel. He's lost a bit of weight recently, hasn't he?
He has, I know. Where's Go Away? Is that the price of that? No, unfortunately. No, well, he's leaving the airwaves, which is a blessed release. Perhaps try again to have a successful television programme at 5-1. No, seriously. To get married at 9-1. He's a man who splits opinion, isn't he? And I'm on the side of dislike. So today's news is fabulous for me because I much prefer Nick Grimshaw. I wish him all the best.
Well, Nick Grimshaw might only be in the hot seat for a year or so. That's what we're reckoning. We don't know what's going to happen to Chris Moyles next, but we wish him well. We wish you well as well. Many thanks for watching The Punter. Many thanks to my studio guest, Chris Graham. From me, Dan Roebuck. Hopefully, it'll be a profitable weekend for you. We'll see you next time.